Hello again. Okay, this is part 4 and the last one on here. Sorry it took so long for all of this. I'm going to do it a little bit different the next time with the next agreements that I've got. I've got a lot of them. So I'm going to figure something out because it's just not working this way. For me anyway. So I will be looking at comments here soon and trying to get this one uploaded as fast as I can. Thank you. Sorry about the wait.
Ready or not, here I come now. Let's play hide and seek. Prepare to be caught. Here I come now. Let's play hide and seek. Riding on the playground, no one dares to make a sound. Round and round and round and round, no one wants to be first found.
The United States reserves the right to proceed against any remaining property not identified in this plea agreement, including any property in which defendant has any interest or control if said assets constitute or are derived from proceeds of or were used or intended to be used to facilitate the commission or offense charged in count 1 of the superseding information. Are firearms and or ammunition involved in or used in this commission or of the offense charged? Man, these are a lot of words, man. Man, it just goes so redundant. Oh my goodness. Okay. Superseding are as or were involved in or traceable to property involved in the offense charged in Court 3 of the proceedings information. 14. Abandonment of contraband, firearms, firearm accessories, magazines, and ammunition. So that's one thing that those guys, the soldiers, were stealing from their work, like the armory or wherever they were in the army somewhere. But what fort? I'm trying to think what base that was. That they said it was. But anyway, they were stealing parts for guns, tons of boxes of bullets, and actual guns. But I mean, there was a lot of, like the different parts and stuff to them too. So that's why I wonder if these guys were part of this, or me, because initially what that force was in town for was because of a child. I don't know if it was pornography. I'm not sure what it was, but it had to do with a child. And so they were looking at this one guy, and what came about was this one guy, once they started, they had an undercover agent, friending him and stuff. And what happened is, in the meanwhile, his other friend was the one that was stealing and selling and bartering with these bullets and stuff. And so there was 2 cases in one, really. So when they said that this was kind of like in the beginning, they're saying this had a bunch of different parts to it. Well, this is what it would be right here, because this would have to do with that, the U.S. holds that were in the Whitman County Jail. And I remember when I first saw that, and the reason that when I first saw that it struck me like I remembered it so much, and I kept going back and looking, was because one of the names was so similar to one of the names that we were talking about. Anyway, abandonment of contraband, firearms, So basically, all the stuff they're saying in here, such property includes, but it's not limited to. So any of these things, they can't, not give up the rights to them in the title. Well, there's no titles to those, but you know what I mean. They can't try to get rid of them, give them to somebody else, and that la la da da. 15. Non-prosecution of additional offenses. As a part of this plea agreement, the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Washington agrees not to prosecute defendant for any additional offenses known to it as of the time of this plea agreement, based upon evidence. Oh my God. So you know what that means right there? That means if they committed those if the atrocities, that they're not going to get prosecuted for it. What the effing hell? That's what that means. My God. Oh my God. That's why they did it like this. So they agreed not to prosecute defendant for any additional offenses known to as of the time of this plea agreement based upon evidence in his possession at the time and that arises out of conduct given rise to this investigation, or to move at this time of sentencing to dismiss the indictment as against defendant. In this regard, defendant recognizes the United States has agreed not to prosecute all of the criminal charges the evidence establishes are committed by defendant solely because of the promises made by defendant in this plea agreement. This sucks. Defendant agrees, however, that for purpose of preparing the presentence report, the United States Attorney Office will provide the United States Probation Office with evidence of all conduct committed by defendant. Defendant agrees that any charges to be dismissed before or at the time of sentencing were substantially justified in light of evidence available to the United States and were not vexatious, frivolous, or taken in bad faith, and do not provide defendant with a basis for further claims under the Hyde Amendment. Hyde Amendment. Oh my God, this makes me sick to my stomach. They're gonna walk on this shit. They're gonna fucking walk. Mother God. Shit, where's my pen? Shit, I'll get it later. Man, I'm really ticked right now. Breach, waiver, and post-plea. This needs to get out there now so that, I don't know if they can retract this and do something different on this plea, because he's not sentenced yet. He's not actually been sentenced, I don't think. Okay, so breach, waiver, and post-plea conduct. Defendant agrees that if defendant breaches this plea agreement, the United States may withdraw from this plea agreement and defendant may be prosecuted for all offenses for which the United States has evidence. B, defendant will not oppose any steps taken by the United States to nullify this plea agreement, including the filing of a motion to withdraw from the plea agreement, and or C, defendant waives any objection to the reinstitution of any charges that previously were dismissed or any additional charges that had not been prosecuted. Defendant, oh man, I'm just really mad right now. Defendant further understands that if, after the date of this plea agreement, defendant should engage in illegal conduct or conduct that violates any conditions of release or the conditions of confinement, examples of which include, but are not limited to, obstruction of justice, failure to appear for court proceedings, criminal conduct while pending sentencing, false statements to law enforcement agents, the pretrial services officer, probation officer, or court. The United States is free under the plea agreement to file additional charges against defendant and or seek a sentence that takes such conduct into consideration by requesting the court to apply additional adjustments or enhancements in its sentencing guidelines calculations in order to increase the applicable adversary guidelines range, and or by seeking an upbound departure or variance from the calculated advisory guidelines range. Under these circumstances, the United States is free to seek such adjustments, enhancements, departures, and or variances, even if otherwise precluded by the terms of the plea agreement. I didn't quite understand that one. I kind of get it. Like if he does anything wrong, they can take back everything, the plea agreement, the sentencing, the amount of time, that kind of thing. But the part I don't get is, maybe that's something about that last part makes me feel like there's an out, like he's got an out somewhere in there, which makes it not good. Okay, I gotta take a break. Hold on. 17. Waiver of appellate rights and rights to collateral attacks. Collateral attacks, huh? Defendant acknowledges that by entering the guilty plea required by this plea agreement, defendant waives all rights to appeal from defendant's conviction and any pretrial rulings of the court and any rulings of the court made prior to entry of the judgment of conviction Defendant further agrees that, provided the court imposes a custodial sentence that is within or below the sentencing guidelines range, meaning if they give him a lighter term for what, the 210 is a standard, 210 months, if they lower it, right? Okay. So, defendant further agrees that provided the court imposes a custodial sentence that is within or below the sentencing guidelines range, or the statutory mandatory minimum is, if greater than guideline range, as determined by the court at the time of sentencing. Defendant waives, to the full extent of the law, any right conferred by Title 18, United States Code Section 3742, to challenge or direct appeal the sentence imposed by the court, including any fine, restitution order, probation or supervised release conditions, or forfeiture order if applicable. This includes any procedural challenges to the sentence, including any claim that the procedure employed at sentencing violated defendant's constitutional rights. Defendant also agrees that by entering the guilty pleas required by this plea agreement, defendant waives any right to bring collateral attack against the conviction and sentence, including any restitution order imposed, except as it may relate to the effectiveness of legal representation or a claim of prosecutory misconduct based on facts unknown for not reasonably discoverable prior to entry of the judgment of conviction. Defendant acknowledges that certain claims, including certain claims for prosecutory misconduct, will be barred by operation of law by virtue of their guilty plea. Independently from this plea agreement, this waiver does not preclude a defendant from bringing an appropriate motion to address the conditions or defendant's confinement or the decisions of the Bureau of Prisons regarding the execution of defendant's sentence. If defendant breaches this plea agreement at any time by appealing or collaterally attacking, except as to claims not subject to the waiver above, the conviction or sentence in any way, the United States may prosecute defendant for any counts, including those with mandatory minimum sentences that were dismissed and not charged pursuant to this plea agreement. Wow. 18. Voluntariness of plea. Defendant agrees that defendant has entered into this plea agreement freely and voluntarily, and that no threats or promises were made to induce defendant to enter a plea of guilty other than the promises contained in this plea agreement or set forth on the record of this change of plea hearing in this matter. So defendant to enter a plea of guilty other than the promises contained in this plea agreement or set forth on the record at the change of plea hearing in this matter. Okay. 19. Statute of limitations. In the event this plea agreement is not accepted by the court for any reason, or defendant breaches any of the terms of this plea agreement, the statute of limitations shall be deemed to have been told from the date of the plea agreement to 1. 30 days following the date of non-acceptance of plea agreement by the court, 2. 30 days following the date of which breach of the plea agreement by defendant is discovered by the United States Attorney's Office. All right, I think that's a good thing. 20. Completeness of plea agreement. The United States and defendant acknowledge that these terms constitute the entire plea agreement between the parties, except as may be set forth on the record at the change of plea hearing in this matter. This plea agreement binds only the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Washington. It does not bind any other United States Attorney's offices or any other office or agency in the United States or any state or local prosecutor. So does that mean that if something did happen, they can charge it for the murders, that they could bring that up like this cancels out all the other stuff up here if it's a different place, right? Is that what that means? I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this up. I'm not gonna no fancy stuff. It's just gonna go up and that's it. Okay. Let me do the end of it here. Okay, so watch your eyeballs. I'm gonna scroll up really fast. Oh, hold on, just pause you. Okay, I'm just gonna go one by one. So screenshot fast or pause because I don't have a lot of time left. I don't want to hang out here for this. I've got other things I need to put up here. There's also about some other plea agreements that I've got that I'm going to be putting up as well, including Candace Bailey, by the way, which ought to be interesting. Boy, does she got some firearms too. Woo-wee. Page 4. Page 5. I'm not going to do the counting for you all the time. Okay. That Adam part really interests me. Really interests me because you don't hear Adam in here anywhere else, but they're right there so far anyway. There's plenty more of these to read. Plenty more. And the other big guy too in this. Those are coming up as well. Boop-boop-be-doo. Why I've got rubber ducky in my head, I have no idea. But I do. And it's been splashing around in my head. I should make a video on the charger at the grub truck. I do have one, I think, in my gallery, but that I haven't put up yet. So maybe I'll just slap a disclaimer on it and send it on its way. It'd be interesting to check out the times on that too and see what time that person was there. It was towards the end of the grub truck, so it had been like, when they close. Should have been around, 2-ish or something like that. Getting there. It's pouring down rain right now. Oh, here it comes. You'll be able to hear it in a minute. Oh, it started and it stopped. You can really hear it in the car too. Man, last night there was huge raindrops. Really big. I mean, literally the cat she's looking around going, what the heck's all that? Her head was like back and forth like a tennis ball or like a tennis match. Tuffy shotgun. Trying to wait till that number is gone on the side of the page so you can get a regular screenshot. Oh, I gotta go make something to eat. I haven't eaten yet today. Almost done. Woohoo! All right, there you have it. Aren't I nice?